Hello everyone and welcome to your collective tarot guidance for the year 2023. Before I begin, I would just like to say that I usually do a rather linear predictive reading. If you just check out my channel, for every year it's pretty much the same format. But for this year, I tried my very hardest to, respect my own methodology, but it just was not working. Of course, I had to look in astrology to kind of get exactly why the energy is behaving in such an unexpected way, to me at least. And of course, with Jupiter in Aries and all the other big energy shifts knocking around the door, they haven't happened yet, but they are still in preparation, so we are feeling it very, very much. Well, long story short, North Node is going to be in Aries, and a lot of energy is in Aries, so it means that a lot depends so very, very much on us, individually especially. So us as individuals, the self, so to speak. And a lot of things have to take birth, sometimes spontaneously, sometimes away chaotically, uncontrollably within the self, within our mind, or whatever, part of our being is more in control of us. But that also means predictions are a little bit even silly, because if some things, energies, thoughts, ideas, decisions, actions, reactions, etc., are born, in the spur of a moment, that's very, very much divine, your own divinity. So even the universe, even the divine plan, sometimes has to wait for that moment of birth in order for the larger scheme to make sense further, if you kind of know what I mean. It's not easy to understand, so of course we cannot even try to comprehend these things with just a lower mind, a rational mind. These are really, really susceptible to the higher mind or the higher level of consciousness, because time doesn't really make sense from a divine perspective. It is not very linear. It doesn't even exist. It is more of an illusion, if anything. But at the same time, it is also necessary for us to function right now in this form, here and now, basically. So yeah, I just have to mention this because perhaps my very own blockage, methodological blockage, let's say, already speaks a lot about how the energies of this year are gonna be. Very, very, very unexpected. So maybe no one, not me, not you, not the world itself, not the world leaders themselves, can rely all that much on their very own well-developed, refined methodologies, regardless of how much effort, work, or sacrifice they put into it, because perhaps things on a subtle level have changed so much and so drastically and so dramatically that new methodologies or great, great improvisation is in place. Something that the sign of Aries is really, really, really notorious for. And from, actually, to be totally honest, from all the signs, you might think that the more mercurial signs like Gemini, Virgo, or mutable energies are the best at improvisation, or maybe Scorpionic energy, because he will figure it out, or maybe Capricornic energy, he will make it. But actually no, it's Aries, because Aries somehow makes it. So Aries somehow makes even reality itself bend to the Aries way of seeing and doing things rather than vice versa. So, when it comes to improvisation, let's all be a little bit Aries, because it will get us a longer way than any other attitude. So, with this being said, the only way I could work out a guidance reading which can incorporate everything essential, well, it was a Celtic cross. Or my altered version of a Celtic cross with using more than one tarot deck and even non-tarot. So I'll try to explain the energies of next year in this fashion. So with every Celtic cross, we have the cross itself, which marks, in my reading, the general energy, the core, the key tone, the most important, part in energy, of course, or in information in this year 2023. And here we have the Ace of Swords and the Five of Wands reversed, which I find so very interesting, because none of these, the key, the core, is not really a major arcana, yet perhaps the Ace of Swords is one of those minor arcana, so a newer addition to tarot, which is the most impacting and the most powerful card in itself, because it does mark, when it appears, and this strays from tarot, the classic tarot a little bit, when the Ace of Swords appears, it cuts reality there and then. When your eyes meet with the Ace of Swords, regardless if it appears as the Ace of Swords itself, or the Ace of Spades, for example, in poker, it means that reality itself will not be the same again, because the core information will change, and the change is permanent. But at the same time, the Ace of Swords is also that card which promises a new beginning, or promises that whatever ultimately came to culmination and completion, hence the cutting, that has a great, great, great meaning and great, great purpose. So, in this way, we already know that 2023 is going to be a year that will mark informationally that life is not the same after. Now, we had very relevant years in this sense, in astrologically or in any other way, like 2020, for example. And absolutely, even those years meant that reality is not the same after, but that wasn't the spur of a moment. That needed time to sink in deeply. And that is the time when it sunk in deeply that, yep, that old world, that old normality, the old value systems, the old configuration of the international power, and actually even the old way of existing within society, where we knew that this was, for example, this function of the collective, that was that function, this is meant to do this, that is meant to do that. Now all of that is reconfiguring one way or another. And the Ace of Swords, now in a more with tarot approach, if you know what I mean, it does mean that a lot happens informationally. What is information collectively? Well, first of all, it means legislation, law, the information that rules everything, the written word, etc. So legal changes. But this also means that the legal changes, some of them are going to be so massive that the countries where they take place, it will mark truly the beginning of a new era legally, if that makes sense. Now, then we also have the internet, because that has a lot to do with information and everything that has to do with technology, science, communication of science, and the storing of information. So, very, very important moves, so to speak, are going to be taking place on the internet, or through the internet, or have as subject the internet, and in this case seen as humanity's, manifested collective consciousness that connects all of us, that basically makes us even physically, act as a unified organism, humankind. Now, big changes happening there. So that means rights on the internet, freedom of speech, what you're allowed to share and what not. But it doesn't necessarily come as an imposed restriction. Quite the opposite, Ace of Swords. An uprising, rebellion of freedom. A big battle is gonna be played out, fought virtually on the internet. Who possesses information, but not necessarily to possess stored information, to be the source of information, to charge information emotionally. So we will see a massive battle on there. So this also means mediatically, legal, and the Five of Wands reversed. And this is what clarifies, basically, this is part of the cross, so it's very important. Five of Wands is usually competition, fight, war, and we did see war play out in the world in so very many different ways, and in so very many different forms of existence, on the internet, emotionally, morally, opinion, politically, and of course psychologically, because psychologically speaking, this is a heavy period of massive psychological warfare, when that is the biggest weapon, the most predominant weapon. That is the nuke, psychology and the psychic energy. That is really the nuke. And also spiritually, because it goes hand in hand. So, but because it's reversed, that means the war isn't going anywhere. Sometimes the Five of Wands reversed means that it's lost. It becomes futile. There needs to be no victor, because it becomes futile. Something eclipses it. Or it represents that it's forced peace. Or it represents that something much bigger is stirring. That, as I said, either makes it futile or makes it halt. Or just, So yeah, big things happening. So the Five of Wands reversed also means that the economic competition and climate will change. Capitalism itself is gonna change. Competition is not gonna be allowed in a very, how should I say, unbound manner. As you can see in all throughout this spread, the Justice card made an appearance from every single deck. Justice at the top. Then we have Justice card at the bottom, and then we also have Justice card as a clarifier. So and Justice, of course, South Node and Libra. Now this time the South Node is more important a tiny bit in this collective sense, because the South Node means everything that we've done until now, everything that is in existence due to our action, inaction, or whatever. Libra, how did whatever is there, the energy subject to justice, our deeds, may that be information, anything, how gravely did that tip the balance? Because if it did, South Node and Libra, justice, equilibrium, in a forced manner, as grave as the imbalance once was, so great is gonna be the swing. The equilibrium swing, the swing of the scale. And you can imagine that swing will set many things into motion. It will be like a catapult, in the literal sense. It will catapult the energy. So the nodes are good, if I'm not mistaken. I'm so sorry, but I have a flu, so that kind of also affects my brain and my memory. I don't know how. July-ish. That's, I think, if I remember correctly, that's the moment when the nodal axis is gonna shift. But, Libra, the South Node in Libra, that will be the moment when the catapults truly starts to, take an offensive position, to start shooting, start attacking. And also, in 2023, a bit of astrology, Pluto will square the nodes. So that's quite intense, very, 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 and very intense and explosive. But this marks the big picture, the core of the cross. Now let's see the clarifiers. So here on the left, we have the Hermit reversed and the King of Cups. Now this to me says, first of all, this represents everything that remains from the past to be resolved or to be built on in 2023, of course. And it kind of depends on us because it is under our awareness and under our control. So everything that is under our control. And of course, let's not take this all that much individually, but rather, as I said, a collective guidance. So what happens to the world? We are the world, of course. So the Hermit reversed. This, on one hand, means everything that has had and has to do with the medical problem, the COVID, the criminal and scientific and any political and legal and any kind of investigations that go hand in hand with that. So there will be a moment of revelation. There will be a moment when something is kind of figured out. The Hermit reverse. So the light of the Hermit is shining. So everything is as clear as possible. So that means action will be taken, a medical reform, reform in work, many industries. When I say work, is anything that has to do with basically HR, with laws which govern work and labor and career and how this is managed and administered. And this King of Cups tells us that this is not necessarily something all that much external as enforced upon us. This is actually that the values have changed so much that the behavior of people, of us, of citizens, or call us however you want, are so different that simply the old modus operandi cannot manage anything. So the emotional difference, the emotional of our behaviors as workers, as consumers, as recipients of the work, as anything, has changed so dramatically that this will have to be reflected. And the good thing is, the world itself, in however perspective you want to see this, will have to give way to reflect those changes in our moods, in our behavior, in our collective psychology. So the Three of Wands clarifies with the Temperance. This is when people and even groups and everyone will be offered the possibility for temperance, rebalancing, healing, regeneration, rediscovery, readaptation. Help might come in, relocations, and travel here and there for certain purposes is going to be greatly encouraged. And usually the Three of Wands and Temperance together represent big humanitarian actions. When there is going to be travel, there is going to be involvement in the sense of healing, of aid, of help. That also means the Hermit reversed, a crisis somewhere, a medical crisis, or Hermit can also mean humanitarian crisis, the forces of nature, where they will stir compassion, they will stir mercy, they will stir, the King of Cups, basically. And there will be travel, there will be movement, there will be dynamic. And as I said, even individually, somehow the world itself, whatever that means to us personally, will offer us a small moment of, as I said, regeneration, healing, or go where we need to be, or sort ourselves out, so to speak. Now, on the right, we have everything that we do not have power over and everything that is fresh and new. So we have the Nine of Coins with the Queen of, with the Queen of, the Queen of Wands reversed. Well, this is also really, really reflective of what I said earlier, where our behaviors changed. The Nine of Coins represents the manifested behavior. So the sense of pride, the everything that belongs to us, our sense of belonging, our sense of possession, our sense of well-being, our sense of integrity, and this collectively means value, collective value system. Queen of Wands, Queen of Wands, yeah, reversed. Something is disappearing that we do not agree with. Is that cash? Is that some kind of good old traditional values that we do love greatly? Because the Queen of Wands also means our passions that we do want to preserve and keep for as long as possible. But if those are challenged, we might have to fight for their preservation. So something value to us wants to disappear or is condemned to disappear or is condemned to reform, and we do not agree with it. So there will be savior actions in that sense. But on the other hand, the Nine of Coins also means, what does dignity and decency mean to everyone? So, and this is clarified by the Five of Swords reversed. So a malevolent information reveals itself. Now, what does that even mean? A bad collective way of thinking, for example. It appears to all of us that is no longer viable for our both close and more distant futures, so we need to do something about it. So this to me says the Six of Swords moving on to a much better collective mindset, which affects values. And if those values have to crystallize dignity and basically human rights in value, how does someone's human rights manifest physically? Well, to me, this is having their minimal basic needs met and secured. So this will be a big, big, big discussion. And there might be some protests and uprising and rebellions against or pro this, better said, as in equality, fairness of economic repartition, better said. So this is where people will reject or refuse not having basic needs met when it is ridiculous. So this will really, really act like a wrecking ball into the economy somewhere in the world, and it will chain through most places actually. Now moving on, then we have at the very, very bottom that which we are manifesting, that which we are growing, because that is why it's the bottom. It's like the roots of the tree of life. We need to nourish it. So you get it. So here we have the Ace of Wands, another very, very important ace. Usually in a reading when we have both the Ace of Swords and Ace of Wands, that means action or change or something that causes action, reaction, or an action that causes change. And we also have the Star and the Moon, major arcana, so I do find this very, very important because, as I said, if this is the root, we already have a lot here. So we are already in this. This is already something that we have in the present. And the Ace of Wands means action, exactly. It means activation. It means motivation. It means that the energy is building up just like a volcano. And this is more like the individualistic energy. This is where, as I said, energetically speaking, when there is a huge, huge, huge chunk of energy, how should I say, at the borderline of the physical and the ethereal, well, that means that one way or another it will come through. And until now, it could only come through, just like sunlight comes through, through the crown, the leaves of a very, very rich in branches tree. So there's only small streams of light that can get through. The full rays of the sun are absorbed by the tree's, crown. But now it's so big that it has to come crashing through. As a shower, as an avalanche, as an explosion, as an eruption, or as however, but it will come through. Because this is what the Ace of Wands represents, that the energy that is in spirit, that is out there, it has no choice now but to be born. And this Ace of Wands is also very suggestive that we are the individual, the human element, and our inner worlds, our wills, the inner fire within us, and between us even, is gonna be the vessel and also the catalyst. And the star, this is imperative for the future, and the moon, exactly. This is when the collective feeling is gonna be changing. And the clarifier is, again, the star. The star, well, it's Aquarius. Pluto touches Aquarius. That will be so important. And that will be felt so intensely. Because effectively the future vision within our minds, within our beings, within our emotions, the future feeling is gonna change. But change in a sense of become more real than ever. Pluto is intensity. Pluto is, in a way, the inner truth. It's gonna change in a sense that it becomes more and more and more real and necessary. The justice again. Rebalancing. So, this amalgam of energy, it's major arcana. So it doesn't even say anything concrete. But what it does say, that the individual itself, because this is at the roots, remember? Many of us, or all of us better said, need a certain kind of justice. What justice, fairness means to us personally in our lives. And it is going to be a theme guaranteed by the South Node. But this is where it's not really the justice of the ego or the lower ego. What happened to me in this lifetime? It might have not all that much to do with us in the ego identity sense, but better said in the sense that I am a sovereign living being, and so is everyone else that I know and I'm connected to. So we should be allowed to exist how we aspire, the star card. And life should be truly about our aspirations, because the rest that is not is the hardship that we kind of know how to handle. We know how to handle, it's not a problem. But if you take away from us exactly the ability to aspire, then you make our hardships and that which doesn't depend on us impossible to beat. And when this inner realization and when this inner epiphany reaches basically the collective mind, Aquarius, the collective mind. Now Akasha, whatever mystics say to be Akasha, that is so very real. And the internet is not an expression of it, a mimicry, but the schematic, that is the big idea really. But that Akasha, which is Aquarius, basically, ruled by Uranus, of course, planet of the future, planet of astrology, planet of the collective consciousness itself, well, when it activates in a Plutonian way, you can imagine that all of us have to take possession of our chunks, our portion of the collective consciousness, because we are it. We cannot leave it to the collective, that which is imperatively ours. So a big rebalancing and recalibration of energies of what equality and fairness and equity even means in design in the human world. So based on that, something is bound to really recalibrate a lot of things. So this is again highlights a transformation, a change that will, there's no going back. It is permanent. It is forever. And here we have everything that doesn't really depend on us. So if this was the root, this is the very top of the tree. This is the leaves at the very, very top. And we have the justice. Justice at the bottom, justice at the top. What does this justice mean? Well, the justice kind of means, and this is where we have to go to the clarifiers of the cross, where we have the lovers and the Nine of Swords reversed. The Nine of Swords reversed face the collective fear. So face that which we made to exist within our collective consciousness. Certain fears that shouldn't be there. We created certain gods that should not be there. We gave power to certain energies that are not really us. And lovers, well, it is the purge. It is when we take back our possession. Lovers, Gemini. One Gemini is divine, the other one is earthly. The two, when they meet in harmony, that's when the union becomes truly divine. That's how the twins got to be constellations. So this also means that this is needed for equilibrium and justice. So if we truly value love, if we truly value compassion, if we truly think of another human being as our brother, sister, as a co-creation basically, as in co-creation, as in all of us are simply creations, well then that has to reflect in everything that we do. Three of Cups, Two of Cups as clarifiers of the justice. This does mean big, big, big moves in the artistic world. Something that the world has never seen before. The art, love through art, love through inspiration, love through blessed words, love through, or better said, love taking over the internet, changes justice, changes the legislation, changes certain rights. So love manifesting, love realizing, love becoming felt, palpable, dominant, ruling over us. So in that sense, this must be the best of news, because a lot of problems are there at our roots, if you know what I mean. But if love is also there, that needs to have a word in all of this equation. And then the clarifying cards, we have the tree, which is the Hangman. So as I said, Pluto entering Aquarius is going to be very, very challenging for a lot of people, because Pluto and Aquarius, as I said, within a human being is the higher mind. It is basically a very delicate layer of the mental sphere, that which is not necessarily just connected to the reality that we are living and the common reality, physical reality, but it is also connected to wherever it is that we want to modify or take that reality, our aspiration, our hopes, our dreams, our understanding of life, our understanding of the greater cycles of life and nature and everything there, because we cannot take control and ownership of the future blindly without any kind of understanding. So that understanding of the future and of the great design of all things is exactly Aquarius and our own personal expressions of Uranus. So why is that very important? Because the hangman, purgatory, purification. How is the internet going to be purged out of, as I said, malevolent? And what is malevolent? Depressing, fakely depressing, or fakely negative, or harmful information, lies, deception, that which goes against the creativity needed for basically Aquarius, Pluto and Aquarius. So that is kind of going to be revealed and purged out. So this means that action is going to be taken to protect the internet from certain, I don't know, cyber warfare, or we'll see how this plays out with big moves happening on the internet and through the internet, and also a big solar storm can be expected. And the hangman also represents Neptune. So you can imagine at the very beginning of the year, it's not going to be very clear what is happening and what is not. Chances are news and anything presented to us cannot be trusted. So yeah. And this can also mean a certain kind of collective depression or collective dark night of the soul. So we'll also see how that turns out. Then we have this Nine of Water, which is the Nine of Cups. This is communion with spirit. Again, something might happen in the world which really stirs collective compassion, collective solidarity, the power of love to rise up, more than ever before. So how is that gonna play out? What event could trigger that? The tree, a flood, tsunami, or the tree, it's depicted as a tree here, so something falls, something crumbles. Or in Celtic culture, if a tree was hit by lightning, the tower here, but it survived, it was sacred. And it became a sacred tree and worshipped as such, a portal to what is beyond the material realm. So it can also mean a big calamity that actually brings forth something much greater good from it. Well, we shall see. And then we have the Five of Air, fight, strife. This without a doubt means protests, but also legal fights. This might mean an uprising within a country, within a state, that really changes the dynamics. Opposing forces battling each other at war. But this is also where it's separate, because the justice means that is going to be one part of the tone, but that's not going to be the collective reality really. That's going to run itself, but collective reality is really going to be more about what is needed to be birthed. Justice. So the light has to be either lighter or at least weigh as much as the feather. If not, it's bad news. And the work, in order for us collectively to do this, begins probably for the next 3 years, because Saturn enters Pisces. So that means purification. That means the purgatory itself. That means it will decant the Piscean waters, removing the scorpionic toxin and impurities for the next 30 plus years. So yeah, it is gonna be a really intense year where it's not just individual, but collectively we're also gonna be detoxed from our own toxicity. So our collective consciousness is also gonna be basically detoxed. But we can see how the world of music, arts, anything that has to do with the Neptunian sphere can play a really important and relevant role in this collective purging out of that which cannot come with us into the future. And I also chosen two non-tarot clarifier cards. If you just look at the top, where we have that slave boy with the chain attached to his feet jumping off the cliff into the water, protesting, or better said, clinging on to the hopes of a miracle, but even demise is better than being a slave. So you can imagine that when the energies of Uranus and Saturn activate at the same time, it's not gonna be an easy expression, without a doubt. So this does mean, again, Pluto activating the sign of Uranus, Aquarius, liberty, equality, fraternity. Aquarius has a lot to do with the revolution, French Revolution, so that energy will play out somehow, in some way, some part of the world. Liberty, uprising, where, as I said, if the North Node empowers Aries and activates the individual doesn't care about any other authority than the self, or maybe the divine, but definitely not earthly. And the other one depicts, Joan d'Arc, or a female saint conquering a demonic beast. And it contains the energies of Mars in Aries and Jupiter, of course. And exactly Aries, the North Node in Aries, and Jupiter being in it. So all of us are this Joanne d'Arc having to slay the dragon, whatever that means to us individually. But chances are, for a lot of people collectively, that dragon means a part of what earthly authority came to be until now. So this is what I would like to share with you. Thank you so very much for staying tuned and for listening to this reading. I am wishing everyone a truly blessed and amazing 2023. And remember, with the North Node in Aries, Jupiter in Aries, it's really, really all about the birth of the self. So, at least in energy and in spirit, everything is in your hands, your head, better said. So, be who you truly desire and aspire to be, because you can make that happen. Maybe not necessarily this year, but this will be a big, big, keystone to getting there. So thank you again for listening, and until next time, bye for now.